Record. Hi guys, and welcome to another episode of Bobby's Business Club, the chat show. Bobby's Business Club is an online community of business owners. We have meetings online. We also do things called Bobby's Business Club, the chat show, and this is what we're here to do today. We invite people to come along to give examples of their experience and how they help their clients. And today we have Annie Bourke from Cosmic Heart Intuitive, and she's going to be talking about understanding your animals. Annie, the floor is yours. Take it away whenever you're ready.
Thank you very much, and hello to everybody. Now I'll just share my screen.
Oh, you were just in presenter. You weren't in presenter mode a minute ago, so now I can just see your. I can't explain what I can see because it's really big. I can't tell what it is.
Oh,
but before that's it. That's it. Good.
You can see it now. Great.
Perfect.
Thank you. Okay, welcome everyone. And I'm excited to be sharing some of my experiences with animals with you today, and hopefully enhancing your understanding of your animals. So I've been an animal communicator and an animal medium for over 10 years now. So I have conversations with animals who are living and animals in spirit, and help their parents to better understand what's happening in their world, particularly with health or behaviour issues. And for bereaved animal parents, I can connect with the soul of their animal in spirit, and so I can get answers to their unanswered questions. And that really helps the grief process, both for the humans and for the animal who's in spirit, because it gives them an opportunity to pass on messages to their humans. And so that can really help move towards peace of mind. I'm also a clairsentient, a clairvoyant, and a claircognizant, which means that I can feel things and see things and know things with no rational explanation as to why. But being a clairsentient and being able to feel things really helps me with the animals with health issues, because I can actually ask the animal to let me feel what they're actually feeling on a physical level and an emotional level. And then I feel their pain and other symptoms in my body, and I can feel the emotions welling up inside me as well. So that really helps the humans to know what they're going through. And that's really useful if they're a rescue animal and you don't know what they're still dealing with from their past. It just helps people to be more sensitive and more patient, knowing that they're still dealing with a lot of issues. I do distance healing to support animals and humans, and I combine crystal therapy and Reiki and clinical aromatherapy to support both animals and humans. And again, I've discovered in my conversations that sometimes our animals actually take on some of our health symptoms for us, even though we don't ask them to do that. So sometimes they need healing support as well as their human. I'm the author of 2 Amazon bestseller books, which are available on Amazon as ebooks or paperbacks. And for those of you in Australia, if you're interested in getting a copy, please don't order from Amazon, just contact me, and I'll have my contact details at the end of the presentation, because I actually offer a free dedication in the books from your animals. So I just need a photo of your animal showing their face with their eyes open, and I can tune into them and ask them for a personal message for you to go in the book and then post you the book. And last year I started my podcast show called What Animals Tell Me, because they do tell me such incredible stories, and I just feel because they're telling me the stories, it's my duty to share their stories and also their wisdom with the world. And then I also interview people who work in unique ways with animals, so there's a mixture of the episodes to listen to. So I'd like to start with some key messages that your animals would like you to know, and this will make a real difference for your relationship with your animal. And the first thing is to know that animals understand everything that you say. I get people telling me, oh yeah, they're just a pet and they understand no and walk. But actually, I'm here to tell you they have very sophisticated understanding of English, and they know exactly what you're saying. Because they have free will, they choose whether they want to obey your instructions or not. So if you tell your cat, don't jump on the table, they have free will to decide whether they want to jump on the table or not, but they certainly hear what you say. In addition to that, they're also very intuitive and very intelligent. and they know exactly what's going on with us. We all vibrate at a certain energetic frequency, and when we get sick, our energy level drops. And because our animals are so sensitive, they know, and sometimes they're aware of it before we're consciously aware of it. And so they will instinctively be hanging around more. They may lay on us or lie next to us, be more affectionate, more attentive, because they've got a vested interest in getting us healthy as soon as possible. To them, we are their world. And so they want us to be as healthy as possible and as well as possible so that we can enjoy the interactions with them. And in addition to picking up on our health status, they're also little walking barometers of our moods. So if we're sad or upset or stressed, any of those kind of emotions, they will be able to sense that. And again, they'll try and support us with that. They're also very sensitive to the frequency of words. So every word we say has a vibrational frequency. Some are very high frequency words like love and gratitude, and some are very low frequency words. So if we're talking a lot about negative issues in our animals' presence, that can affect them. Or if we call them a negative name or a negative nickname, that can also affect them on a psychological or emotional level. So I was asked to speak with a cat called Mighty, and her name was spelled Mitey. And the first thing she said to me was, "I don't have an infestation." And she thought she'd been named for mites, and she was extremely offended. And she'd picked out all these beautiful oldie worldy names that she wanted to be called, but she did not want to be called Mighty. And then I spoke to a male cat who was called Phantom Menace. Obviously, there were Star Wars fans in the house, and so he got called Menace. He hated being called Menace, and he wanted to be called Harry. And as soon as they started calling him Harry, he responded straight away. So you just need to think that they are very aware of what people say to them and about them. And the other thing that they'd love you to know is that there's no coincidence that they're with you. There will be a reason that your animal is there, and I'll go through a few of those. And this is one of my beautiful fur angels now. He was one of my first animal communicator teachers, Paddy. And I just love this quote, that until one has loved an animal, a part of one's soul remains unawakened. And some of our animals are with us to help us to experience unconditional love from them. But having interactions with an animal, whether it's our animal or one that we encounter at a zoo or somewhere else, helps us to evolve our hearts and helps us on our spiritual journeys. So they really do affect us, even though we're not consciously aware of that. And so animal communication is a really interesting topic. Until we can communicate with them telepathically, which is what I do, our animals have to rely on body language or eye contact or vocalizing to us or even changing behavior when they're trying to get something through to us and we're just not getting the message. So telepathic communication is actually silent. I hear their voices in my head, and they've all got different voices, just like humans. And I can tell when they're laughing and smiling. Some of them are real practical jokers, and they make me laugh with some of the stories they tell me. But that's how they communicate with each other and in between species as well. And I've seen my cats having a family meeting, and they'll all be sitting close together, looking very intently at each other. I don't eavesdrop. I'll just leave them to their own private conversation, but that's how they communicate with each other as well. But you'll know that they're trying to tell you something and you just can't understand. And I know I always used to tell my cats, look, I wish I could understand cat, because I knew that they could understand me, and I just wish that I could understand them. And so, yes, they want to tell us how much they love us and how much they appreciate us looking after them and taking care of them. Sometimes they're trying to tell us that something is not okay in their world, and things change in their environment and that affects them. So if we get another animal, if we bring home a baby, if we bring home a new partner, if we have visitors staying in the house, if you're babysitting someone's animal for a while, all of those situations mean that their routine has changed and their ability to interact with you and have time with you has changed as well. They're really used to routine. They love having one-on-one time with you. So with any of those scenarios happening, it's really important that you try and keep that one-on-one time with them, reassure them, tell them what's happening. If they know in advance that someone's coming or that an animal's going to be visiting for a while, knowing in advance just gives them time to adjust before that situation changes. And yes, I've said that they're very sensitive to energy changes and stress issues around us, so that's just part of what they do. And they love us telling them what's going on. And once they know that we know that they understand everything, that changes how they interact with us as well. So I've had a number of people I've had conversations with where I've never spoken to their animal, and I've just said, go home and have a conversation with them, knowing that they understand every word you say. And they've just been amazed at how much it's changed the relationship. So they really do love having the conversation. And they don't care if it's talking to them about hanging out the washing or you're doing the dishes or whatever you're doing next. They just love being involved. And so telepathic communication is, I describe it like tuning into the frequency of the animal's energy. So it's like tuning into an old-fashioned radio. You've got to connect in, and then you hear their voice in your head. And when you hear the voice in your head for the first time, it's absolutely amazing, because you know it's not your own self voice talking to you, it's someone else's voice, and that's just incredible. So Riley and Patty were my first two communication teachers, and they were very patient with me. But they also taught me that if I didn't understand what they were saying, I could ask them to show me. And they haven't explained the advanced thought transference technology they use, but somehow I end up with a little video snippet in my head, and so I can see what they want to tell me. So with Paddy, I asked him what his favourite parts of the day were, and instead of telling me, he showed me. So then I suddenly had this vision in my head of me opening up the garage door coming home from work, and he just loved me being home, so that was beautiful to see. And then he showed me him jumping up onto my lap on the recliner chair, because he loved having Reiki sessions and crystal sessions with me. So it's just lovely what they can show you as well as what they can tell you. And there's lots of reasons why animal communication can help you and your animal. So particularly understanding what's happening in your animal's world, and often they perceive things that may not actually be correct. So if you bring home a new animal and there's no warning about it, some of them might think they've done something to upset you and you don't love them anymore. And so it's very important to let them know that you still love them exactly the same, but you have capacity in your heart to love another animal. They will understand it. It'll take them a while to adjust to it, but they do understand it when you tell them. And particularly if there's changes in behaviour, or they've got health issues and you don't understand what's happening. I'm not a vet, I'm not an animal behaviourist, but I can actually ask what's happening. And so many times the behaviour changes are because they're trying to get a message through to you. So they're not being deliberately naughty. There is a genuine reason why they're doing what they're doing, because it's one of the most effective ways they can get your attention. And as I've talked about, some of them don't like their name and they want to change it. So that's certainly a question I can ask them. And it's so interesting, because if they don't like their name, they will have thought of options that they would prefer to be called, which I can then tell they're humans. Sometimes they don't like some of the other animals in the house, and sometimes they might be upset with how another human in the house might be treating you. And they're very tactful with how they say it. So they just make suggestions about what someone could do to be more supportive. And then we can ask basic questions like, do they want different food? Are they happy with their diet? Is there something deficient in their diet? Do they need supplements? Do they want a different kind of bed, different toys, all sorts of different things? And I said, as a clairsentient, I can actually ask them to let me feel what they're feeling. So if they're in pain, I can then feel their pain in my body. So I spoke with a horse recently who wasn't able to lie down. And so she was just sleeping standing up, and every now and then she'd just collapse once she relaxed too much. And I ended up with this pain in my left hip. It was very specific. And when the owners checked with the former owner, she'd actually had an injury to her left hip 2 years ago, and obviously it's still affecting her. So they're very good at being able to let you feel what they're feeling. And as I said, they can also take on health symptoms for us, even though we haven't asked them to do that. They love being of service to us. So my beautiful red boy on the banner behind me, just before I went on a book writer's retreat to write my 2 books, I got a really bad chest infection and I was extremely unwell. A couple of days later, he's got a chest infection. I can't give it to him. He's an indoor cat, hasn't been anywhere to get any bugs, and none of my other cats were sick. So he'd taken that on to help me so that I'd be well enough to go and write the books, because he understood how important it was for my soul mission to be able to go and write them. He hadn't factored in that I'd have to take him to the vet every day so they could monitor his temperature, but he got better and I got better, so I was able to go. So I had to thank him for doing that. But it's interesting, there's a lot of animals I speak to who are in a lot of pain, and none of it's theirs, it's their humans. So it's interesting asking the question about why they're in so much pain, how much of it is theirs and how much is someone else's. Now, why are they with us? Now, when we incarnate, either as a soul in a human body or a soul in an animal body, we come here with a soul purpose or a life purpose, and we come with soul lessons to learn. So our animals have a soul purpose and they have soul lessons. So sometimes they've come to us so that we can help them with their lessons, and sometimes they've come to us to help us with our lessons. And they also take on additional roles. So some of them here are teachers. So I've said that Patty and Riley were my animal communication teachers. Some of them are healers. So my red boy's definitely a healer, and he loves working with my crystal grids. They all do. And then my middle girl is a guardian, and she'll actually start growling when someone pulls up in the driveway. I won't even know a car's there until she starts growling. So she's letting me know that there's someone there, and then she'll check out their energy. And if she growls, it means that she doesn't really like them. And if she's okay with them, it means it's okay. They're allowed to come in. Now, for those of you who have guardian animals, they take their role very seriously. And it's interesting because some of these are the animals who get separation anxiety, and they've told me that they feel as though they're failing in their duty, because if we go out to go shopping or we go away on a holiday, they don't know where we've gone, they don't know when we're going to be back, and they don't know if we're going to come back. So particularly if it's a rescue animal who's experienced abandonment or rejection before, there's always that nagging doubt that it might happen again. So it's really important to let your animals know if you're going out, where you're going, what you're going to be doing, just because they like knowing what you're doing, and when you're going to be back. And they understand the concept of time. So if you can say, I'm going out for 2 hours, I'm going to get dog food, I'm going to get you some treats, and then I'll be back, they totally understand that, and that just massively reduces their anxiety. And similarly, if you're going on a holiday, you can say, look, I'm going to be away for 3 sleeps. This is the person who's going to be looking after you, and I'll be back in 3 sleeps time. They can count down the sleeps, they understand that, and then they'll be waiting to meet you when you're back again, but not so stressed. And some of our animals are with us because they've been with us before. And in the last couple of months, I'm just finding out more and more that some people's childhood animals have come back to have another lifetime with them, and they weren't aware. And it's absolutely amazing. So when they come back, they're not exactly the same version of who they were, because they've had a lifetime before. They've had lessons which they've integrated and they've evolved. So it's a higher version aspect of their soul that comes back. But it's interesting because some people have said to me, oh, I think it's such and such. And then I just get confirmation of that with my soul, and I ask them. And yes, we get confirmation about who it is. And then sometimes they may have been with us in past lives, and some of you may not be aware of having a past life, but sometimes our animals may have been humans with us in a past life, or they may have been animals. So again, it's absolutely fascinating to me to unravel all these interconnections with our animals. I've got one lady whose dog is about to come back for the 4th lifetime in a row to be with her. So he was in her childhood dog, and he's coming back for the 4th time in a row. I've got a number of clients where they've had the same animal soul in 3 successive animals. And so to me, it's just amazing that they can come back. It's not every animal's destiny to come back, but when they can, it's just incredible to have another lifetime of love with them again. So some of the conversations I've had, I had to speak with a horse, and her mum wanted to know lots of things about the equipment that she was getting for her, like the weight of her blankets and food and all sorts of things. And one of the questions I had to ask her was, would she like to try a bridle that meant that she wouldn't have to have any metal in her mouth? And the horse listened to that, and the next thing she started singing Alleluia to me. And I nearly fell over because I've never had an animal sing to me before. And I thought, wow, how incredible to know that she can sing, but also sing such an appropriate song as the answer. So look, they just amaze me with what they know and showing their intelligence with how they answer. And her mum also wanted to know if she wanted to compete. And that's a really interesting question to ask animals as well. You know, do horses want to race? Do dogs want to compete in events? All sorts of things, so they can have a choice. And yes, she wanted to do dressage, and yes, she wanted to do jumping when one of her feet had recovered from an injury. But they just loved being asked, so that was interesting. And then horse G had accidentally run into an electric fence, and he'd actually burnt himself on his chest, so he was in a bit of pain, but it's healed, he's okay. But when I talked to him about it, he said, oh, that was shocking. And like, he totally understood the pun on shocking. He was just so clever. And I just thought, good on him. Like, he's in pain, but his sense of humour is still okay. So that was a hilarious conversation. It made his mum laugh and feel a lot better, knowing that even despite the pain, he was okay. Dog A, I've had a few conversations with, and I had been warned by her mum that she had some attitude, and yes, she does have attitude. But I had to talk to her and find out what her mum could do to help her and her dog brother accept a cat to the family, because mum wanted to get a kitten and didn't know how they'd cope with having a kitten in the house when they weren't used to it. And her first response was, love me more. And like, she was partly joking, but she just wanted to make sure that she was still going to be loved. And I've had this message over and over from animals, that when someone brings home a new animal, if there's no warning, they don't know what they've done to deserve having another animal in the house. So they can perceive it as punishment, that they're not doing enough to love their humans. And she said it can be a bit much, seeing the mum doting on the kitten and sort of lavishing it with love in front of them. And so that we need to be sensitive and do some of that loving out of sight of our existing animals, but also importantly to maintain our one-on-one time with our animals, so they still get individual playtime with us and walk time, and we're not just spending so much time with the new animal and ignoring the older animals. So very wise advice from her. And then a delightful cat I had to talk with. His mum wanted to know why he likes splashing water out of his water bowl, and a lot of them do. And he told me, and I said, oh, do you want to tell mum anything else? And he said, does she want an existential expose on the physics of displacing a volume of water? Now, I just listened to that and thought, wow, okay, he obviously has a very sophisticated understanding of English. He totally understands the question. And he's also got a really good understanding of science and physics with displacing the volume of water with his paw. So, yeah, I never know what they're going to tell me, but I'm just used to now expecting the unexpected. And I just thought I'd talk a little bit about rescue animals, because I know a lot of people do have rescue animals, and there's lots of situations that mean animals do have to be a rescue animal. So we might find them from a shelter or RSPCA or different places to look after them. And sadly, some of them have been abandoned or lost. Some of them have to be surrendered when their owners can no longer look after them, particularly if they've got complex medical issues, and there's also financial difficulties with that. Sometimes they haven't been cared for properly, and sometimes there's something wrong with their mother animal and they can no longer look after them. And so the kittens or puppies or whatever the baby animals are need to be rescued so that they can get adequate nurturing and care. And so why do they come to us? So we have hearts that we can love them, and we've got hands where we can hold them and nurture them. So I'm just in awe of rescue animals giving humans a second chance when they can have had a really poor experience the first time round. The fact that they can open up their hearts and hope to have the love and security that they didn't get to experience the first time around, I think is just so powerful and profound that they can do that. And again, they may be coming to us to help us with our soul mission and theirs. And it's funny because a lot of people think they're rescuing the animal, but often the animals can be rescuing us. And so sometimes our animals in spirit actually help orchestrate a certain animal coming into our life to help us heal. They know that we're grieving, and it's part of what they can do to help us with the recovery from that. And so it means that the animals can help us while we're helping them with emotional and physical healing. And sometimes our rescue animals have been with us before as a rescue animal, and they know if they want to come back to us that they have to get their soul into another rescue animal body so that we can find them again and bring them home. And it's so clever that they've worked that out, and so ingenious how they actually do that. And as I said earlier, they do help our hearts evolve, and that's so important for our spiritual growth, even though we're not aware that they're actually having that effect on us. So I've spoken to a couple of snakes who were rescue animals, and the female had been kept in a dark environment that was cold, and apparently a lot of rescue reptiles are rescued because they're not being cared for appropriately. So in particular, snakes need to have adequate lighting, and they need to have a temperature to maintain their body temperature. So she wasn't in very good condition when she was rescued, but she's now with her new mum, who absolutely loves snakes and reptiles and rescuing animals. And so she's really healthy and really happy, and very happy to chat with me. And then the male snake who lives with her, very interesting personality. He was actually a wild snake who was captured. And so part of him is really cranky that he's no longer a wild snake and he has to live a captive life. And so he takes it as a personal challenge to try and get out of whatever enclosure he's in to get outside again. But unfortunately, he's had an altercation with something like a possum and got very badly injured. So he got rescued again, and he's now been rehabilitated and he's now healed again. But I think there's part of him that secretly wants to escape if he can. So their personalities just shine through in the conversations. I just love having conversations. Dog C had been in a number of foster homes before he went to his permanent home, and he didn't know it was his forever home. And he was being very naughty and trying to lead his dog sisters astray. And his mum couldn't understand why he was being so naughty, because she was trying to give him all this love and make him feel really secure. And so when I had the conversation with him, he said that he'd learnt in all these foster homes that if he was naughty, he'd get some human attention, and that's what he was craving. So he had this learnt pattern of behaviour: be naughty, get some human attention, fail at foster home, get kicked out to the next one, be naughty, get some attention, and so on. So he'd never learnt to develop relationships with the other animals where he was, because he felt there was no point, because he wasn't going to be staying for very long. So when I explained he was now in his forever home, he just said, I'm overwhelmed. He just couldn't believe that he wasn't going to get kicked out, and he could finally start establishing relationships, and he didn't have to keep on being naughty to get love and attention from his mum. So his behaviour completely changed, and he's totally integrated with his sisters, and just loving being in his family. Dog P was also a rescue dog, and her mum knew that she had a number of health issues and couldn't get any diagnosis as to why. And I asked her to feel what she was feeling and asked her what was going on. And she was actually experiencing 9 out of 10 intensity pain in her hip. But it's actually not her pain, it's her mum's pain. Her mum has chronic pain. And so her mum knew that something was wrong with the way she was walking, but she's taking on those symptoms energetically. So when she's had scans and tests and everything, everything's normal, because there's nothing wrong with her physically. It's energetic. And that's what they do. They take on these symptoms to be of service for us. But having the conversation has totally changed their relationship. She knows her mum wants a really close relationship with her, and that's what they've got now. And she knows not to take on all those symptoms for her mum. Dog Elle had been traumatized before she came to live with her family, and she barks like mad if any tradies come to the house. And she showed me something of what happened in her experience when she was abused. And so she's taken on this duty of guardian. And if she thinks that anyone's got bad vibe energy, she's letting her humans know. And they were getting worried because she was getting so distressed with all the barking. So we've now explained that, yes, it's great that she's alerting them, but she doesn't need to keep on barking unless she's really concerned about something. So that's altered her behaviour now. And then Cat J was a rescue animal, and he came to live with 2 other rescue animals, and he was the last one to join the family, but he wanted to be the boss. He wanted to be the number one. He wanted to be the favourite. So he was trying to harass the other male, and there was no need for him to do that. And I explained to him, once he explained to me his rationale, and I said, look, Mum loves all of you. She doesn't have a favourite. She loves you equally. So you don't need to keep doing that behaviour, because you don't need to prove that you're number one. Your mum absolutely loves you as you are. And so he had to listen to all of that and process it, and then totally changed his behaviour, and they've all integrated really well. So it's just finding out what's really going on with them, what their perceptions are, and then just asking some questions and getting them to think about the situation. And then they tell me, oh, yeah, okay, I don't need to do that. Thank you for pointing that out. And I didn't mean to cause Mum and the others any stress. So they understand the impact that their behaviour has, and they're very open to getting information, but making the decision about how they want to respond to it. Now, saying goodbye to our animals is one of the hardest things that we do. It's hard for us, it's hard for our animal who passes away, because they grieve too, and they can see that we're grieving for them, and they can't come and physically comfort us. And our other animals in the family will be grieving, and other humans in the family will be grieving. So if you're the main person in the house, you've got to support your animals and your humans. Your existing animals will know that you're grieving, so they'll try and come and comfort you, but equally they will be wanting you to comfort them, because they're going through that grief process as well. But our animals have taught me some amazing things that really help us with navigating that grief process. So their souls endure. So although the physical body no longer exists, the soul continues, and that's eternal. And so we can always connect with our animals with a communication session, and there is no true separation from our animals. I've spoken with a dog who passed over more than 20 years ago, and so there's no time limit on when we can connect with them. And so when they pass over, they go through a healing process, the same as when human souls pass over. And it seems to be the physical healing happens first. So even animals who have been extremely immobile, when I talk to them and see them, it's as though they've got a new lease of life, and they're running around like young puppies or young kittens, and all of those physical ailments have gone. And so once that's happened, then they can come back and visit us. So we can ask them to visit in a dream or in a meditation, and we will see them, we'll hear them, we'll feel them, and that's real. But they can come back to us in that form. But they can also come back and visit us energetically. And they haven't explained to me how they do it yet, but they can put on a temporary physical body, even though they no longer own one. They exist as a soul. But I've had so many clients tell me they've seen their animals running up and down the corridor. How do they do that? I don't know, but it's just something that happens. And so, you know, this has all changed my understanding of reality, and particularly what happens with souls and what happens after we pass away. And they just teach me all the time. So they can also vocalise when they come back. So my cat Riley used to meow when she came back for a visit, and my boy Paddy used to play with my hair, because that's what he did as a kitten. He used to sleep on my pillow and massage my head all night. And so he'll just come back any time of the day now, and he'll just massage my hair lightly, and I'll know that he's there. But they're so creative, they can do all sorts of things. So the grey pussy cat has been back to visit his parents, rubbing his tail around their legs, and they can feel the fur, and they look down and there's no one there. He's put his paws up and patted them on their legs, and he's vocalised. They can hear him, and he's got a very distinctive voice, so they know that he's there. The dog came back to visit Mum, and he actually told me to tell his mum he was going to come back and visit. And I caught up with her a couple of days after he'd given me that message, and I said, oh, what happened? And she just laughed, and she said he jumped on the bed with such force he knocked 2 pillows off. And like, he'd only passed away that day, so it was very quick for him to come back that night, but he's a very evolved soul, and he knew that he was going to be able to do that. But she'd forgotten that he'd passed, so she just automatically put a hand out to touch him. And of course, he wasn't there. But a lot of people have felt their animals on their bed, like jumping up on the bed or walking up near them, or actually snuggling down and lying next to them. And it's just so reassuring when we can feel them. The black cat has been back to visit her mum and sitting behind the blinds in the window and wobbling them and making a noise. And that's what she did when she was alive. So that's her unique sign to let mum know that she's there for a visit. And the dog on the end's hilarious because her mum used to stir her all the time. So she comes for visits through the doggy door. And so the mum will hear the doggy door go, but she can't see anyone. So it gave her a fright the first time. But I think it's just payback that she's just teasing mum, giving her a little fright when she comes for a visit. And they can also show us the signs. So they might move something around in the house or one of their toys or something, just so we know that they've been for a visit. And they're so creative that I've worked out now that when I have conversations with them in spirit, they actually give me a code word, which means absolutely nothing to me, but it means something significant for their human. And then their human knows I'm definitely talking with them. And so the cat on the left was a blind cat, and he was in spirit and he was having a conversation with me. And partway through the conversation, he said, a rumple teaser. And I thought, what on earth is rumple teaser? And I thought, did I hear that properly? And I thought, is he trying to say Rumpelstiltskin and I've just heard it wrong? And then I thought, no, that doesn't make any sense with the conversation. So I doubted myself, which is something easy to do when you're learning animal communication. Thought I must just be hearing things. Continued the conversation, and then he said it again very clearly. And so I thought, okay, he's giving me a message. And so I typed a message to his mum and I said, was he ever called Rumple Teaser? And there was silence for a while, and I thought, oh, she's going to think I'm crazy. And then she typed back, oh, I'd forgotten all about that. And when she rescued him, he was living with a dog called Rumple, and he used to get in trouble for teasing the dog. So he was called Rumple Teaser. And he couldn't even see the dog, so he wasn't teasing the dog. But it was such a clever word to use, because how on earth did that word get in my head? Telling me, like I couldn't have thought it up. So I confirmed for mum, I was definitely talking to him. And for me now, it's taught me that that's what they're doing with me, so that I can tell the parents the code word, and then they know it's their animal. And the cat in the middle, her code word was tomatoes. And I'm thinking, why is a cat telling me tomatoes? And I said, can you expand on that, please? And she said, no, it's a test. And I thought, okay. Now, she actually wanted to come back as a dog. And so I thought, I wonder whether she wants to eat tomatoes as a dog. And she told me she wanted to come back as a terrier. When they're coming back, they know what body they've got the opportunity to come back in. So she could tell me she was going to be a male terrier and what colour. So anyway, I just Googled, is it safe for dogs to eat tomatoes? And apparently, yes, it is, as long as they're red and ripe and very small quantity and no stems or leaves. On this internet page is a picture of a terrier dog with a bowl of tomatoes. And like, this weird stuff just happens all the time now. There's no explanation of why pick that page and there's a picture of a terrier. But it was just confirmation that she's coming back as a terrier. But when I told mum about the tomato, she said, oh, Annie, they're my favourite thing. I eat them every day, and the cat knows that. So that's the significance of the tomatoes, and seeing the image was just a bonus confirmation. And then the dog at the end, his code word was treehouse. And I'm thinking, how on earth can treehouse be a code word for a dog? Like, I couldn't imagine a dog climbing up little steps, getting up into a treehouse. But his mum explained that she has been to a property a lot called Treehouse, and he's been with her. And then over the road from that is a whole series of nature walks, and he's been on them from when he was a puppy till just before he passed away. And so it made absolute sense to her that that was his code word. So I just think that's phenomenal that they can do that as part of a conversation. So as you've already heard, they have taught me about reincarnation of souls, and I had no experience of this until it happened to me with Riley. And she wasn't very old, she had no health issues, and suddenly one morning she just passed away. And it was such a huge shock, and I had no idea what was going on. And because she was the first animal that I'd been speaking with, I had no idea how long I'd have to wait to be able to connect to her on the other side. But at least I was in a position where I was going to be able to do that. Anyway, I was able to speak to her on that day. And so I said, what did you do that for? And she said, oh, I needed a new body. Like in a time like that, like doesn't everybody else do that? And she said, stop being so sentimental. I'm coming back. Now, she'd told the boys what was going on, so they weren't pining for her at all. They weren't off their food. I was the only one who was upset, and they just said it was a temporary reprieve till she was back to boss them around again. So they knew exactly what she was doing, and she came back. She described what she was going to look like and just walked back into the house. She knew her fur brothers. She knew me. She knew where everything was, and it's just so bizarre. It's like they've just been on this temporary holiday, had a complete body makeover, and then they're back again. And it just changes the dynamics because, you know, she was one of the older cats and then she came back as the youngest cat. But they seem to adjust and recognise each other quite quickly because on a soul level, they know each other. They might look different. Sometimes they nearly look identical. They'll smell different, but they will recognise them. And that adjustment process is so much quicker because they know them. And so the cat that I talked about who said tomato, she came back as the terrier that she told me about. This beautiful boy came back looking very similar and extremely similar behaviour, and so much so with his personality that his mum quite often calls him by his former name because she's just so used to it and knows that's who it is. And they don't mind us knowing who they are and calling them by their old name. They know that we love them. This beautiful girl cat down at the bottom wanted to come back to her mum, but she had to come back as a boy, and she wasn't very keen on coming back as a boy, but that was her opportunity to come back to her mum. She didn't realise that her mum was also going to bring her sister home, and she thought she was coming back to be the boss cat again. So she's had to adjust to coming back as a boy and also having a female cat with her. They get on now, but it's been a huge adjustment process because she wasn't expecting that when she came back. And then this lovely cat at the bottom told me she was going to come back as a lilac Tonkinese male. And this has been very educational for me because they tell me all these breeds that I know nothing about and I have to research them all. I didn't know that Tonkinese came in a lilac pattern, but they do. And interestingly, when they come back, the soul doesn't go into the body necessarily when they're conceived. They can swap in at a later stage, and they just negotiate with the soul who's in there to swap in so that they can get back to their humans. So in this case, she waited until mum had found that boy and then swapped her soul in. And I've just spoken with another cat who's over 3, and the soul of the cat who's coming back has just swapped into her now so that she could come back to her mum and her first sister. So they're just teaching me these concepts about soul journeys all the time. I wrote my first book about animals in 2018. I now need to write a sequel because they've just taught me so much more, and I want to share that wisdom with the world. So how can you connect on a deeper level with your animal? I'd recommend listening to my episodes on my podcast, What Animals Tell Me. My first 2 episodes are about energetic visits from our animals in spirit and can my animal soul in spirit reincarnate, and how do I know that I'm connecting with the right spirit. I also interview people who work with unique ways with animals, so those episodes are there as well. For those of you on Facebook, I've got my own private Facebook group called Understand Your Animals. So it's a community of animal parents where we share our animals, photos and stories. I do some educational posts, and I also run free masterclasses for animal parents twice a month, and I advertise those in the group and on social media, so you're welcome to come to them as well. My book, The Bridge to Animal Consciousness, a number of people have read that, and that's actually helped activate their communication channel. So we can actually all talk to animals telepathically when we're children. And if you watch kids, they squat right down and they'll tell you exactly what the animals have said. And the parents go, oh, yes, dear, very nice, not understanding that that's actually a genuine conversation that they've had. Something happens as we grow up and we switch that channel off, but we can reactivate it. And it's interesting because I've had people telling me they can suddenly hear their animal after reading the book. So that's fabulous. And as I said, the most important thing is just keep on having conversations with your animals every day because they absolutely love that. So some of you listening will be in different situations and at different stages. So some of you might want to get some urgent answers from your animals, particularly if they've got different behaviours that you're starting to see, or you don't know what's happening with their health status. Some of you might want to delve in deeper and find out more about your relationship with your animals, and particularly in the past, and why they actually with you. For those of you who are still experiencing bereavement, I can help with connecting with your animal and getting answers to the questions that you haven't had answers for. So sometimes people haven't been there when their animal passed away and didn't get a chance to say goodbye. And sometimes they don't have a diagnosis, and so they don't know why their animal passed away. So these are the kind of questions that I can ask that can help give you some peace of mind. And some of you may be interested in learning how to communicate with your animals, and I'm offering my animal communication mentorship program, where I'm going to work with animal parents for up to 3 months, helping you to master the skills to talk to your animals. And some of you might have tried lots of different things to try and help you and your animal and be at your wit's end. So I'm really happy just to have a complimentary conversation with you and just find out what you're experiencing and how I can help. Animals are my absolute passion, and I just love making a difference for them and for their humans. So I offer animal communication sessions, either with animals who are living or in spirit, and I can have up to 2 animals in a session, and I don't mind if it's 2 animals who are living, 2 in spirit, or 1 of each, whatever combination, that's fine. I connect with animals through photographs, so I just need a photograph of your animal showing their face with their eyes open and your question. So I can connect with an animal anywhere in the world or in spirit just through having those photographs. As I said, I do have my animal mediumship program. So I work with parents for 3 months, navigating through the grief journey and getting healing and peace of mind. We've talked about the mentorship program, and you can connect with me, either message me on social media, and the links will be below the video, or you can email me at chintuitive@bigpond.com. I also have some free guides for animal parents, which are available to download on my website, so I'm happy to answer questions about those as well. So now that I've done a lot of talking, I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and I'll go back to Bobby and just see if there are any questions that have come through for me to answer.
No questions at the moment, but great presentation. I was smiling all the way through it. I don't know whether you could see me when you
Yes, yeah.
Like what you do and what you talk about, especially how you present. You're so very calm and presenting what you're talking about. I kept looking to the side because my dog's just over in the corner there, and just like smiling, and they're such beautiful creatures, and they bring so much to us. And like it's funny when you walk down the street, you can really tell if someone's an animal person or not. And we say hello to everything: birds, snakes, anything that's around. Oh, hi, how are you, mate? And we just have that conversation because they make me so happy. So we try and make them happy as well. We try to do our best. And the fact that you bring so much closure to people, and so many questions can be answered. We just want to make sure that they're living the best life. And I suppose that one of the biggest questions you get is, are you happy?
Yes.
Are you happy?
What can I do to make you happier?
Yeah,
yep, that's a very common question.
Yeah.
And I just think it's beautiful that, the humans care so much, and the animals just love that the human has asked the questions, and they actually thank me for having the conversation, because it gives them an opportunity to say what they've been bursting to say to their humans for ages, but just haven't been able to get the messages through. And it's just fascinating, particularly when it's a soul that's come back to the human and the human doesn't know. Often they can be very vocal. And I've spoken with a cat recently and a dog that are just so vocal all the time, and their parents didn't know why. And then we've worked out that it's a special soul that's come back, and they're trying to tell them who they are and get them to recognise. And now that we've had the conversations, that's calmed down. Like, they'll still chat, but that excessive chatting has toned down now because they know who they are. And again, that just deepens the relationship. And just having the one conversation changes animals. It can change behaviour. So I've just had a conversation with dog A that I spoke about that had the attitude that had to adjust to having the kitten, she's now just moved to a new house where there's actually more animals. So she's had to adjust to more humans and more animals. So we've had a conversation because she was having some issues with the new dog. And so we sorted that out. And that was just one conversation, just one question about what was going on. And after we'd had the conversation, Mum sent me through these videos of the two dogs playing happily together. So there's no more attacking and they're just getting on. So it's just phenomenal how just one question, one conversation can make such a difference.
And thanks for jumping on the show today. Thanks for explaining, all about what you do and how you do it, and giving us some really good examples of how that works out. And if anyone is watching this and you want to learn more from Annie, you can obviously reach out to her. All the details are in the description of the video. And of course, I'm always here to do an introduction if you need me to do that. This will be on our YouTube channel in the next week, and we'll also be making some other content from it over the next coming months. So please keep an eye out on all the channels. And like I say, if you would like to learn more from Annie, then please reach out. Annie, honestly, great presentation. I love what you're doing. I love the fact that how you help people and just give them that peace of mind can really help and change how we treat our animals and how we move forward and how we live our own lives. So thanks for doing what you're doing. Keep doing it, and we'll speak to you again soon.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to share. And yes, I think, we can enrich their lives, they enrich our lives. So it's sort of a win-win situation, finding out what we can do to help them and they're helping us.
It definitely is. Thanks again for jumping on the show, and I'll see you later.
Thank you.